What's up, everyone? Connor O'Hanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today, boy, we have a lot of catching up to do as we were not live last week for Thanksgiving. Took the week off with a bunch of schoolwork too and organizing all that stuff. Post-election has been a bit crazy for me in particular. But we are back and it's good to be live with you today. We have quite a bit of very different news to cover, a lot of different items that have come up in the last 2 weeks or so that we really need to hit on. There is one thing that I didn't include in the thumbnail and in any of the promotion or any of the stuff that I do want to upfront kind of bring up. I plan on talking about more of this stuff next week with the passage, or hopefully the passage, of the Respect for Marriage Act in both House and Senate and signed into law by President Biden, hopefully by next week. But that is the shooting at the LGBTQ club that happened last week. And I just want to upfront, bring it up. We're not going to talk too much in depth about it, but this is part of the overarching narrative that we're going to talk about today, and talking about Republicans connecting to violence, connecting to extremism and radicalism that has led people to these acts. And I just want to let everyone know up front, this show will never accept bigotry towards the LGBTQ plus community, especially violence. Violence is never the answer in especially in America at this point. To any of our problems. We really have the capacity to work through everything that we possibly can, and that the violent rhetoric has to stop, and it's coming from one side. It's not coming from both sides. The false equivalency, the allegations, we will talk a bit about it in the end when I talk about school board stuff, which I also didn't bring up in promotion of this episode, but it is very important that I bring that up because it's a local issue that I want to talk about and bring to everybody's attention as the school board races will become key in this next year and moving forward. So without further ado, the remainder of the show, we are going to be talking about Kanye and Nick Fuentes going in and having dinner with presidential candidate and former president Donald Trump. Then we're going to watch a bunch of reactions. We're going to talk about Tim Pool having all these wackadoos on his podcast and Kanye walking off. We're going to look at the lack of response from the GOP. And then we're going to shift and we're going to talk about a bad move by the Biden administration, which honestly, it's been a while since a serious bad move from politically speaking and from a progressive standpoint, I would say, from the Biden administration. And that is with regard to the rail workers and the House passing a bill today. And we will discuss further on that to avert a strike. We will come back. And then the last piece is talking about school board and talking about in between here, intermittently, talking about election denialism, which is broadly speaking connected to the first and last pieces that we're talking. So I will sprinkle that in throughout, and I will talk to you about my solution and my proposed solution to combat the rhetoric up front and before they can continue to attack innocent people. It's absolutely insane. Sorry, Jordan. I'm not going to start with the school board because it's so local, but I will cover it, and we will get to it. There will be plenty to discuss there. You also asked, do I plan on staying on Twitter? Right now, yes. I have a decent reach there right now in comparison to the rest of social media. So for me right now, yes, but obviously it's crashing and burning, so it's kind of like going down with the Titanic. Screw it at this point. We're just gonna go down with it. I got verified, so I have to ride that out, right? So I didn't pay for that check mark, so and I will never pay for it. So if they take that check mark away, then I will delete Twitter probably. But yes, so And yes, there's a poll for local person of the year or something like that that Jordan's talking about. Jordan, you can feel free to send the link in the chat or in the Discord as well. Send that in the Discord server. Get that up front. So, without further ado, let us talk about last week's big bombshell, and that is President or former president and presidential candidate Donald Trump inviting Kanye West and Nick Fuentes to Mar-a-Lago for dinner, which it shouldn't go as be a surprise to anybody. Kanye has been to the White House with Trump. He has been notoriously wearing, MAGA stuff, the hat, all that stuff. We've covered his anti-Semitism a couple weeks ago, and him talking about him wearing a Trump hat got him targeted to get killed and all that stuff, which is all, to steal a Biden phrase, malarkey. But this, although the thumbnail of this episode is Kanye, I think the focus has to be Nick Fuentes. And for those who don't know, and I'm sure that if you're probably watching the show, you have heard something about him in the news because of this. But Nick Fuentes is I think he's slightly younger than me, and he is getting national attention, and he has been getting a national attention because he is an out-and-out racist, a homophobe, a anti-Semite, a Holocaust denier, white nationalist. I mean, the list of like horrible things, like you can just continue to check them off, right? And the focus here has to be, okay, Trump is associating himself with Kanye, who is associating himself with Milo Yiannopoulos as well, and Nick Fuentes, who are both extremist online white nationalists. I mean, the boiling it down, that's where it is. Milo Yiannopoulos, for those who don't remember, 2015, 2016, he was this anti-feminist gay man who is now supposedly not gay because he just has a roommate that he was married to now, and it's a very convoluted situation for the mental gymnastics that someone has to do to get accepted into the far right online, rather than just accepting someone for who they are, being who they are, etc. But he also got canceled for supporting basically pedophilia and the support of statutory rape. And that list goes on and on of what he, supported as well. So you're talking about two of the most vile people online spewing hatred to the LGBTQ plus community as well as minority communities, associating with Kanye, who is the vehicle for them to get broader acclaim. It is something that we have to reckon with, is that the online world is becoming more a reality, right? I've always said this, but online is not real life. That is still the case, but for politics, a lot of the ideologies and a lot of the ideas and formation of groups and counter groups comes through the internet and comes through online discourse. So getting in front of this stuff, stomping them out, both in multiple different ways, and we could discuss back and forth and debate platforming and whatnot. That's maybe a debate for another time, but also combating them by pointing out the nonsense when it comes up. For today, my goal is talking about the response from the Republicans and frankly, comparing the right-wing media, as we will, to what Fuentes has said, and tying the future of the Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to Fuentes. So first of all, we'll talk about, in this article here, Kevin McCarthy, who has been elected to lead the Republican caucus and most likely will be the next Speaker of the House, assuming he can get 218 votes coming up. He is somebody that, after over a week has finally said that, yeah, nobody should be dining with Fuentes. And yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and we will come back to her, has denounced Fuentes. These people always, after a week or two, will say, yeah, maybe he shouldn't have done that. Rather than denouncing Fuentes, Trump has merely said he did not know who he was. He knew nothing about him, which is also not the case. Trump also lied. This is important to note. Trump also lied about somebody that was a former staffer that he knew by face, who was an organizer and coordinator for the entirety of Florida in 2016 for him. So he's lying through his teeth over and over again. Now, he may not have, even if I gave him the most charitable of opinions here, maybe if he just didn't know that Fuentes was coming, or that he didn't know who Fuentes was, which that's not the case. Associating him, lifting him up, giving him platforms after the case is horrendous. Not coming out and condemning him right away is also horrendous. But that's not the case. He knows who he is. He knew who Kanye is. And especially talking about the combination of the two, having known anti-Semites come to Mar-a-Lago to just have dinner, is ludicrous. The funny part about this is not in response to this, but in all of this, we have Kanye going to Mar-a-Lago for one reason. And that reason is to ask Trump to be Kanye's vice president. Not for Kanye to be Trump's vice presidential nominee, but the other way around. So, in talking about egomaniacs, talking about politics, we always are dealing with some level of ego, right? But these people are sociopaths. It is absolutely clear. And frankly, Kanye is on a whole nother level of needing help. But by associating himself with the likes of Nick Fuentes and the likes of Milo Yiannopoulos, he is tanking himself even further. He is doubling down, and we will see. He is doubling down on all of this to see how far he can really take it, and we will blatantly see that in this in these clips. And yes, Trump does support that. Trump is there. This is where it's like, okay, just a quick tangent. In the Republican primary, when we look at actual implementation of policy, is there a difference between DeSantis and Trump? No. Is there an effectiveness difference? Yes. I would argue yes. So this is why these things matter. Now, of course, Kanye has no shot of becoming president, right? Trump does have a shot at coming back again. So tying them together, as he's doing himself, this is where the media has to step up. And it shouldn't be some random guy with 10 people watching, which I love you guys for watching, but let's be honest, we're not the ones. I'm not the one that's going to be, tying Trump to these facts. And it should be obvious at this point that he continuously associates himself with anti-Semites and white nationalists and homophobes and all these horrendous people. But that is why we're doing this, is to continue to push the narrative forward. And it's not made up. He's doing it himself. It's not like a stretch of the imagination to say that he's doing this. So let's take a look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she, of course, denounces, I denounce Nick Fuentes. I don't even really like him. I don't even know who he is. Well, this says otherwise.
We are honored, we are humbled and excited to welcome to the stage right now for our first speech, and we love to get to know her much better. I think this is going to be the beginning of something great. The representative from Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, they look very unfriendly to each other. They definitely don't know each other. She definitely denounces him. She definitely isn't giving speeches at his America First, which is explicitly a white nationalist phrase. Giving a speech at his conference. And yeah, that was the beginning of something great for them. They are working together. They are one and the same. That is the leading. And let me be clear on this. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the leading Republican fundraiser in the House of Representatives. She has no committee seats. She has no actual power within the United States House of Representatives. She might in the next Congress. But right now, all she does is take votes on the floor. She has no influence to actually put forth real legislation and get things through committees because she's not on any committees. But she raises the largest amount of money out of any House Republican. That should tell you what you need to know. So let's take this is the next thing that we want to look at. This is context. This is context for, and this is why I up front talked about the shooting at the, I think it was the Q Club. This is the rhetoric that stokes violence. And this is precisely the reason why Nick Fuentes needs to be tied in with the likes of Tucker Carlson. You will see why. The likes of Sean Hannity, the likes of Donald Trump, because the rhetoric is the same. It's not an extrapolation. It's not even a dog whistle. It's the same words. So this is put together by the Daily Show. So this is a 2-minute clip. So we will.
They say diversity is our strength.
How precisely is diversity our strength?
You got to recognize the fact that this is a godless.
Oh, and I'll also be upfront. Trigger warning. This guy's gonna say some nuts shit, and I don't remember if he says the N-word, but just Nick Fuentes. He is known to do that, and everything that he says is also then going to be countered and not countered, echoed by somebody on Fox News. So just a warning up front, if there's any issues of language, this is just a forewarning.
This country. I hate it.
You're right. They're godless. That is exactly right. I never talk like that, but it's true.
Black people are violent,
They have chaos and violence in their communities.
Send the military into these black neighborhoods, make the streets safe. They'll complain about it. It doesn't matter.
We should send in the troops if necessary to restore order.
Enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal.
Oh, the legacy of Jim Crow. That was 67 years ago. It is ancient history now.
Russia. Can we give a round of applause for Russia?
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?
The fundamentals of our worldview, a society where boys and girls get married as teenagers and start having kids.
We need these ladies to get married. And it's time to fall in love and just settle down. Guys, go put a ring on it.
And they have big families and a high birth rate.
We have to do something to increase our birth rate, or the vacuum that's created will be filled by people that don't believe in our values.
We live in a big Middle Eastern bazaar. We're a big fucking Middle Eastern bazaar with people sitting on blankets and selling cockroaches on sticks.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
And white people are done being bullied.
Discriminating against and just denigrating white people.
Trump's got to get in there and never leave. Elect Trump one more time and then stop having elections.
President for life, that sounds good. Maybe we're going to have to try it. President for life.
So this is just going to run in the background here for a second until we switch. But to be clear, in this video, you saw everything that Nick Fuentes said echoed. And now, of course, there's probably some weird explanation for all of this, I'm sure. If you're just listening to this, my eyes are rolling all the way back through my skull. You have on the screen, you have a senator, you have a sitting congressman, you have 2 different Fox News anchors, you have a Fox News correspondent, and you have the former president and a current presidential nominee saying the exact things that he is saying. Talking about immigration, talking about minority communities, talking about all these different vile things that these idiots spew. And nobody is calling them out to the extent that this video is really proving a point. Like, this should be tying all of these people together. There you have Steve King, who is a congressman. You have all of these folks echoing the same nonsense. So it's important. It is important to continue to point this stuff out and tying them together. So let's look at one last clip on this. And this is a broader thing where this is how little you have to push back on these dweebs to get them to rage quit and to get them to just say, you know what? I'm out. I don't want to have a challenge. I just want to spew this nonsense, this bigotry, and get away with it. This is Tim Pool, who, if you don't know, is a right-winger. He is somebody that is hosting this stuff on his podcast, and all he does is push back slightly in talking about basically pushing it back against Kanye, talking about the Jewish question, which is a conspiracy theory, basically saying that Jewish people control the media and the banks, etc. Tim Pool basically just says, I won't say that specifically. And Kanye rage quits.
I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking about...
It is them, though, isn't it? I mean...
Here's Nick. So Nick Fuentes is on this, and Milo Yiannopoulos is on this. So Tim Pool profiting off of white nationalist, Nick Fuentes coming on, anti-Semite, Kanye West, and white nationalist, Milo Yiannopoulos being on the show. And I don't throw that term around. So like, these are real white supremacists here.
Because because when you think about it, consider it. In 2018...
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about... Are you leaving?
Are you afraid of the press?
He's gone. I'll say it right now. You guys want to bring that stuff up? And then think we're not going to have a conversation?
Like, have the discussion.
Like you think he's going to come in here and say... Here's my pain, here's my suffering. I'm going to say, I hear you. And then he's going to say, and it was Jewish people. And I'm going to be like, okay, but don't you consider... It's like, I'm not going to do this. I refuse.
Make sure he's cool.
All right, go for it. Luke and I don't use the word.
So there you go. That's Milo at the end, by the way. Milo and Fuentes are working for Kanye at this point for his presidential election. And see, that's the smallest amount of pushback you have to give to get these folks triggered and really just knock them off of their bigotry and their high horse and just being like, no, like, sorry, Kanye, you're a moron. Sorry, Nick Fuentes. I know this, like, I know women that could kick your ass. So, like, you're not that cool. You're not supreme in any sort of way. And your ideology is stupid, bigoted, and we fought a world war over ending that ideology. So yeah, the solutions to that, of course, are complicated. And I think continuously pointing out that this is the folks that Republicans, especially in the media and especially leaders like Trump, are associating with is key to electoral victory and controlling the future of this country to keep these people away from any sort of lever of power. So that is that, and that is where I'll leave that for right now. yes, they are mentally deranged. And looping back, Jordan, what's it going to take for me to leave? Losing my verification because I have to pay for it would be one. As you see, like, I pull a lot of these clips from Twitter. I don't really use social media that much for, like, digesting stuff at this point. Like, I look at Twitter for 2 minutes. I'll scroll for 2 minutes, put it away for a long time. Look at Instagram for, like, the stories. That's it. And then Facebook, I just post the show and pictures and whatnot. So TikTok, I'll look at funny videos. That's largely it. So yeah, I watch. YouTube would be one that would be hard for me to leave. Twitter, at some point, if it goes down the drain, it goes down the drain. I would like to have an alternative, but as of right now, doesn't seem to be too many actual alternatives. It seems to be like a part of the same issues that we've seen in right-wing media outlets trying to start their own thing, like Rumble or whatever. Although the difference is pretty stark, being that, like, we're not just gonna allow any sort of bigotry on there. Hate speech wouldn't be allowed on any sort of future leftist or liberal social media platform. Yeah, I wish I could challenge Fuentes to a bench off, and the loser would have to delete their podcast. That would be wonderful. I actually hit bench press earlier today, and that's why my face is a little extra red today. But just to piggyback off of the Republicans, this is not something I have any articles from. This is not something that I have any sort of imagery from, but it is something I want to talk about, and I'll just throw it in here. And that is the election denialism after the election this month. Specifically, probably leading into the runoff that is supposed to happen a week from yesterday, and early voting has already started in Georgia for it. But preemptively talking about election denialism and voter fraud claims, I want to talk about the fact that in Pennsylvania, Luzerne County actually, now they have certified it now, but they had a deadline to certify it. I believe today was the day. And the other day, 2 Republicans voted to not certify it, 2 Democrats voted to certify it, and 1 actually abstained to see what would happen if they did not certify the vote. Which kind of sounds insane, but I also kind of get it in testing the brakes. That's kind of the way I would put it, is like, well, we know that, like, Mastriano lost. We know that Oz lost. Both of them losing by 5 and, like, 10 points respectively. So, like, for the overall election, it doesn't make a difference. But knowing, okay, well, where's the stopgap? What is actually going to stop 2024 from being ripped out of people's hands and just dictatored away, basically? Which dictatored is not a verb, but for the sake of argument, let's just use that. They ultimately certified it today, but a good example of what would happen is in Arizona. And in Arizona, the state is now suing, and I don't recall, it's not Maricopa County, because Maricopa actually did certify it, but that is where a lot of the claims have been. So Carrie Lake is the governor candidate that got defeated in that election, and I was going to say got stomped in that election, but she didn't really get beaten that bad. She lost by like 2 points, I think. But all things considered, Maricopa County is usually where these challenges happen. It's the largest county, most dense populated. But there was another county in Arizona that did not certify, and the state is suing them until they certify and saying, like, you have to prove X, Y, and Z before you don't certify. So that's basically what would happen. Now, on a mass scale, again, it's still something that I don't know the fact. I don't know what would happen, honestly. And we only would know, I think, through multiple examples happening at once. However, you saw, and if you just Google, like, 2022 Arizona election fraud claims, whatever, you'll see people, and they did it this is where I saw it. I believe I saw it on TV, examples of this in Maricopa, because they were voting to certify it. But there were people going there saying that, oh, you're using Dominion voting systems. They're busted. They don't work. They're robbing us from the election. They're doing X, Y, and Z, and it's stealing the election. And for those who don't know, the Dominion voting machines were the same ones that the MyPillow guy, Mike Lindell, was targeting in 2020. And there's been no proof of voter fraud, especially en masse. But the proof of it's the same thing with in 2016, right? There was like 7 cases in 2016, and there's believe it's something close to that in 2020. The cases of voter fraud individually are so minuscule, and I think I want to make this case here. I've made it in the past, but I think a lot of people haven't heard this. In Bucks County, we adopted in 2019. It didn't get implemented until 2020, but we implemented, instead of a lot of people go and they hit the buttons, right? And then you'll just pull the lever. A lot of people like that. But for the sake of transparency, for the sake of an audit trail, and the sake of preemptively knocking down these bogus claims, I believe that every system moving forward, voting system, should include hand-marked paper ballots. And this is something that a lot of these folks actually do push for. Now, there's people that claim voter fraud in Bucks County. They don't know, I guess, that they must not vote because we have hand-marked paper ballots. But not every place does. And this is a complication of federalism. And looking at local governments, actually, specifically county governments, control the election systems. State governments decide how to certify elections, etc. The actual voting machines are picked by county commissioners or whatever the county chair is in each county, right? So these hand-marked paper ballots provide 2 safeguards, right? So you have the scans that actually print out a receipt. So you have a paper receipt that says, this is the vote count for each candidate. Here you go. Now, let's just say that that machine crashes, or that there's some sort of glitch in the matrix and it just implodes without getting on fire, because that would be another thing. But it gets destroyed somehow. In the machines are the actual ballots marked by the people. So you actually have ballots that you can recount and specifically look at each and every one of them if you had to. You can rescan them if you had to. This is something that preemptively knocks down all of the voter fraud claims for the most part, right? Other than like same-day election voting, registration. All that stuff is still nonsense. We would still probably be dealing with it, but it's something that would just push and subside some of those claims that continuously come up. I believe personally that it is provided a level of security in our elections in Bucks County that I would never question. Well, not never, but I don't feel the need to question it, even if Republicans control the county commissioners board, which would then give them control in theory of the Board of Elections, right? So that's how elections work. So the party in the control of your county controls the elections functionally, not explicitly, but in theory, they control the Board of Elections. So that is a great example of something that, like, if you know that your county has something that is coming up for, let's just say, like we do in Bucks County in 2023, we have county commissioners races. Now, the county commissioners did the right thing in 2019, so I don't have to fight on this hill. But let's just say you live in I don't know, random county in Kentucky. And you should push for that. If you have a commissioner's race, you should push for that. It is something that both right and left should agree on, actually. So just tossing that out there on a quick election denialism thing, because most of the election denialists lost, and they lost badly in 2022. If it was closer, if Mastriano was closer, I think we'd be living through absolute hell right now with appeals and all that junk. So that's my 2 cents. I'd love to hear what you have to say on that. Throw it in the chat if you have anything. But the next thing, and this is something that it doesn't impact my dad personally, it doesn't impact my family personally, but I feel personally implicated by it because of my dad is a engineer, rail engineer. And this is for freight trains, not for passenger trains. But there is, and we talked about this like 2 or 3 months ago at this point, the impending railroad union strike. And this is a conglomerate, basically, of many, many unions. It's about 115,000. Remember, I should point this out. Remember that coal workers who have an inordinate amount of influence based on, not because of the workers, but they're used as a pawn by the coal and natural gas industry. But they are disproportionately talked about as a working group. And there's only 60,000 coal miners, roughly, 60 to 65,000 in the country. There's 115,000 freight train workers alone. Not talking about passenger, not talking necessarily about subway, not talking about all of the mass transit that we talk about broadly. Buses, etc. So as a working class bloc, the rail workers are getting absolutely screwed over in their negotiations. Because, and we will talk about the president's response, they are fighting largely at this point for sick leave. Not 30 days, not 21 days. The highest that I've heard that they have asked for is 15 days. The current deal that they had 0 sick days. I will talk about the bill that passed today as well in a second. The complicating factor is that because of specific carve-outs for railroads and airlines, which allows for these functional monopolies to exist, not that they're not profit, not that they're all publicly owned, because of course they're not. They have specific carve-outs, and this allows the House and the Senate specifically to, I don't have a better word for this, but force the acceptance of a specific contract for union workers. So, this is what President Biden sent out 2 days ago. I will read it for those. I will not read the whole thing, but I will read parts of it for those just listening. I am calling on Congress to pass legislation immediately to adopt the tentative agreement between railroad workers and operators without any modifications or delay. We'll loop back to that. To avert a potentially crippling national rail shutdown. We will also come back to that. This agreement was approved by labor and management negotiators in September. On the day that it was announced, labor leaders, business leaders, and elected officials all hailed it as a fair resolution of the dispute between the hardworking men and women of the rail freight unions and the companies in that industry. The deal provides a historic 24% raise for rail workers. It provides improved health care benefits, and it provides the ability of operating craft workers to take unscheduled leave for medical needs. Since that time, the majority of unions, asterisk, in the industry have voted to approve the deal. So let's start from there. That asterisk that I'm throwing in there, because it's not in the actual statement here. The asterisk is for, it might be the majority of unions, but it does not represent the majority of workers. The majority of the workers have not voted to approve this. The largest unions have not. And yes, he's saying a 24% raise. Yes, that's great. But when you operate on these budgets, what happens is, this happens across corporate America, and I'm not telling any trade secrets here. I'm just an accountant. When a worker becomes too, quote, costly, they're older, they might be making $250,000, $300,000, which, by the way, none of these workers that we're talking about do. But let's just say in corporate America. But you can hire somebody to do the same job for a quarter of the price, a third of the price. They might not have the same qualifications, whatever, but when the CEO or the C-suite, the CFO, COO, when their bonus is contingent upon a profit margin percentage, and the easiest way to cut a cost, which, by the way, I'll remind you that labor costs are still not the largest cost. It might be some of the largest costs for a railroad, but not necessarily for all of corporate America, is not one of the largest contributors to operating costs. But it's an easy way to get rid of costs. Now, that means overworking people. Reminder, one of the goals of the railroad companies, which are for profit, by the way, was to get rid of conductors and have one operator on the train. So not having a engineer and a conductor, just having an engineer. So that would mean one person on the train rather than two, which comes up with a hell of a lot of problems. Let alone saying that, oh yeah, we can just have less experienced people do it. It doesn't matter about the safety. It doesn't matter about the precautions that we need. It doesn't matter about training. It doesn't matter about having people that work and have loyalty to a specific trade over time. No, can't do that. We're going to screw them over because we don't want to give them 7 days. That's what the general consensus here is. 7 days of sick leave. Not just broad PTO, extra sick leave. The real reason companies do this, and I'll bring it back to me here. We've talked about this before. The real reason that companies dangle benefits, they talk about, oh yeah, we have this wonderful benefit system for your healthcare, and reminder that we have a for-profit healthcare system because it's all about control. It is about controlling workers. It is about putting them in a certain box and say, you should be happy that you got $50,000. The average person in this country makes $54,000 a year. How can you afford to buy a house? How can you afford to live the American dream when that's the average salary? You can't. And for Joe Biden, who up to this point has been pretty damn good with the unions, for him to say, and for Congress to do it, screw it, just plow it through. It is inexplicably short-sighted and undercuts the working class of this country. And it shows the hand that Democrats need to step up and become more. Some claim to be, right? More of the working class party. We cannot step aside and say, yeah, no, this is great. I saw people on Facebook saying, this is great. Oh my God, fuck that. That is absolute bullshit. You're throwing workers under the bus for a potential, and again, it's not even real, a potential theoretical economic disaster that didn't have to happen if you just gave them half of what they asked for. If they asked for 15 days, give them 7. Instead, they give them 1. This is not negotiation. This is stripping working class power away from people. This is undermining everything you're supposed to stand for. This is undermining what Democrats are supposed to stand for. This is undermining what a working class movement that unifies people across party should look like. If you, as a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, because we still control Congress until January, want to prove that you care about working class people, this is the hill to die on. This is the hill to die on. We don't get many shots at saying we're actually going to provide something for the working class of America. I'm so, it gets me so worked up. Congress has the opportunity to say and champion average Joe and Jane, because that is who this is helping. But instead, the House votes to represent, and I saw fellow Democrats cheering this, votes to get that out of here. Votes to approve a bill to block a railroad strike. This happened today. This accepted the deal that was struck, and another bill that has to get passed, because this is how they do this, right? Oh, don't worry. We're going to vote on another bill. I would like to see where it says in here, but oh, don't worry. We'll vote on another bill tomorrow. Oh, here it is. They're supposed to talk with Pete Buttigieg on Thursday. They're supposed to have another vote on another bill specifically for that sick leave piece. So let me just back away so I don't show my hand here. I would like, if anyone in chat wants to participate, this is a participation trophy time. I would like to know what the average European country you would think sick leave is. In days, however you want to guess it, you want to throw it in the chat, please go for it. Because America, and this is the bad side of American exceptionalism, we should want to strive, again, this is Greater Society 101. Build off the New Deal. Build off the Great Society. Build towards something bigger, better, greater than what we are right now. Having patriotism to build for something for average Joe. So, Jordan says 100. Shaz, 7 days is nothing. Yes, it is. CB, 7 days off a year is insane. Yes, it is. That's sick days, to be fair. They have vacation time. I don't know how much it is precisely, but this is sick days, right? So if you got COVID and you were sick for 5 days, you could get fired. Because that is the strike thing. So it's like you have the ability to go and not get paid, but you run the risk of getting fired after a certain amount of days of not getting paid, which is like 3 days, which is absolutely insane. Lindsay says 5 weeks. Let's take a look. I will zoom in here. So this is not spoiling anything too. So here's the exceptionalism of America. How long are workers guaranteed paid sick leave? This is just general workers, not railroad workers. America, nothing. So any other country that you see that is color-coded like this is nothing. So here we go. Somalia, no paid sick leave. Wow. We're just like Somalia. India, no paid sick leave. Great. That's great company you want to be in right there. It's totally pro-worker countries. Let's go to our neighbor in the north. 3 to 5.9 months in Canada. Let's go to Lithuania. 3 to 5.9 months. Let's go to Mongolia. 3 to 5.9 months. Kazakhstan even has 1 to 2.9 months. Little old Switzerland, 1 month or less. And that is the least that you can find in Europe. So what is this green color? What is this deep green, tealish green color? Oh, 6 months or more? Okay. So 6 months, that would be 180 days. Or more. So if we look down here at the key, this 6 months or more reflects 6 months or more of paid leave includes cases where benefits are provided until recovery or for as long as treatment is required. So for certain injuries, for certain illnesses, you get paid sick leave as long as you need treatment. That's not all of them, but that is some of them. So we got Mexico, we got Spain, we got Ukraine, we got Poland, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Finland, not Switzerland, Russia, China, like come on, like all these countries, South Africa, Brazil, like, are we really gonna just accept this? How do we not have a more broad working class movement? And again, it loops back to what I was talking about in the beginning. A guy like me with 10 people watching, yeah, maybe I'm not gonna immediately change all the narrative and we're all gonna run with it. But having people know these facts and saying that we are one of very few countries in the entire world, over 200 and whatever it is, 50 countries, we're one of like 3 that doesn't guarantee healthcare. I mean, we don't guarantee healthcare either, but that's not what we're talking about. Guarantees sick leave. On top of the fact that we don't have, healthcare. It's about control. It's about control. And yes, Jordan points out, European countries also have paternal leave, which, frankly, we barely have maternal leave in America. This is a type of thing that you should get on top of the soapbox, and let everybody know. This is something that is absolutely despicable, that we have the undercutting of the middle working class people, the working poor in general, that do not have the basic functions of society to provide the basic human needs: food, housing, clothing, healthcare, water. This is the type of thing that we should not accept as a country. We want to be great. We want to be great again, as Trump says. Step up, and we have to organize locally through, if you can, a union. You have to step up locally through political action by taking running yourself, getting involved with the party, getting involved and using the party as a vehicle, finding candidates that you like if you don't want to do that, supporting them, working for them, working with them, volunteering for them, donating, door knocking, everything that you possibly can, and only supporting people that care about these issues. The bread and butter. This is bread and butter. This is literally taking away people's right to go home if they're sick, which we should want people to have sick leave, because if they're sick and they're working, let's just take a train driver, an engineer. If a train engineer is sick, do you think they're more or less likely to fall asleep while they're driving the train? Which you don't drive a train, but whatever. They're more likely because they are sick, which would then potentially lead to crashes, accidents. This is the same thing you see a couple years ago. You saw in Philadelphia, the SEPTA flying off the rails. It's because these workers are overworked and they get majority of their pay only from overtime. They have health issues like sleep apnea, and then they fall asleep at the wheel, and the train's going too fast around a curve, it flips, and people die. It's because these companies are too driven by greed and the profit motive to give a damn about their workers. So, last thing we will go here, as I'm already not worked up enough, and that is what's going on, part of what's going on, I should say, because I probably will need to bring Cyril on, which he actually hasn't been on the Greater Society podcast. So Cyril Michaleko is a local reporter for the Bucks County Beacon. Go check out the Bucks County Beacon if you care about the local issues here from a progressive viewpoint. I am slated to write something there soon. Yeah, so what I'm going to show you, I don't know, honestly, if this is all public yet. So I'm just not going to talk about it, where I got it from and all that stuff. But I mean, it's obvious, like, I got it from the school board. It's just like, I don't know where this stuff comes from, where it's going. It's not Cotton Eye Joe. But this is going to be technical a bit, but it is important. So here's a list, right? And this list, let me see if I don't know if I can zoom it in, but this is a list. You probably can't see it, but this is a map. And this map represents, let me see if I can actually just zoom it in. So this is a map of Central Bucks and the regions of each piece of the school board, okay? So Region 6, that's where I live. This is the current Region 6, right? This is Doylestown Borough and pieces of Doylestown Township. Region 1 is up here. Region, I think this is 8. They're all, I can't really read the map. It's horrible. But that's now. It doesn't even matter now. Because guess what? The right wing, yes, the right wing school board members quickly tried to pull a fast one and redistrict right before the election year. So this is the new map. This is the proposed new map, I should say, because it's not accepted yet, and we will talk about how it gets accepted. But this was voted on to be approved by the Central Bucks School Board. And this would create, in my opinion, a functional gerrymandered school board. So why do I say that? Well, I have to go to the list here to give you a little bit more perspective. So Doylestown was Region 6. That is Tabitha DeLangelo's seat currently. Or sorry, no, Region 6 is not. That is Sharon Colopy, who's a Republican. Region 8 was Tabitha DeLangelo. And I believe Region 5 is Maryam Mahmood, who is a Democrat from Chalfont and New Britain area. This is the old, this list is not the current, this is the current one, but this is where the old ones were. Region 1 is Karen Smith, who is the other Democrat. So you have 9 regions, 3 of them being Democrats, and those are the identified ones. So now, Region 1 is being drawn into a more Democratic seat. Region 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9 are all being drawn more in a Republican way. Region 5 and 8 are more Democratic because, again, this is technical, but Chalfont Borough, New Britain Borough are majority Democrat. New Britain Township, I don't know about this specific region that much, but Doylestown Township District 5 is the most Democratic district in Doylestown Township, shoved into an already Democratic seat. The same thing to all of Doylestown Borough, Doylestown 1 and 6. Doylestown 6 is the second most Democratic district in Doylestown Township. Township 1 is not so much, but it is lesser population. So this is a gerrymandered Democratic seat. And again, I say gerrymandered. I mean, it's functionally what this is. And the same thing, Township 1. I believe Plumstead Township 2 is actually the most Democratic in Plumstead, slapped with New Britain Township and Doylestown Township 2, which is a pretty bad, for the Democrats, it's a pretty rough spot. So, okay, that's a lot of technicality. That's a lot of electoral analysis here. But the key point being, this is something that was tried to be pulled on quick, swiftly, and just be brushed under the rug. Like, oh, no big deal. It wasn't even that big of a deal. But it's being conducted during, basically the election's already started for the school board, which is happening in November of 23. We have multiple school board seats up for the election this year, including Region 6 and Region 8 and Region 1. So Doylestown has 3. This is absolutely a power play to hold to control by this is my opinion, but this is a power play to hold control by the Republicans. In my opinion, school board members should be elected at large. And I think that would provide a much bigger, broader perspective and allow for the people, the will of the people to be heard rather than gerrymandering the crap out of this and just disproportionately outweighing the will of the average person. Because, reminder, the Central Bucks School Board is banning pride flags. The Central Bucks School Board is having book bans. The Central Bucks School Board is supporting the firing, which he's been rehired, but the firing of teachers for putting up and supporting LGBTQ plus students. The right wing of this school board has accused people of grooming. This is a type of nonsense, and there's I'm sure I can't even possibly begin to scratch the surface of the rest of what's going on. But just for the sake of argument, that is a lot for a school board to be doing. And this is my alma mater. This is like they're just destroying something that means so much to me and so many people, I mean, people in chat included. We went to these schools. We went to CB East and CB West and CB South and the elementary schools and the middle schools. Like, they're tearing down institutions and pillars of this community that people moved here. I moved here. My family moved here for these schools. And now they're making a mockery just by doing stupid, unnecessary things. I'm ashamed to see this happening. And if you want to take action, this is the time to do it. Now is the time to start organizing. Now is the time to connect with, yes, and you're right, it is embarrassing for the country because this is getting national news. And it is amplified because we're not the only school board doing this, but it is the insane amount of influence that these folks are getting. Do you have any insight on how the approval of lease? The question's getting cut off, so I can't see all of it. Give me 1 sec to pull that up. The approval of Lisa Core was not voted on by the Dems on the board. I don't know. And this is the thing, is like, I'm going to have to pull up and get an actual. This is how crazy it is that like so yeah, so voted nay on, she was approved. Yeah, I don't know if I'm remembering correctly. She was my guidance counselor, so I actually don't know. That I have to get back to you on that one. I do plan. I have to just get Cyril on or somebody else from educational groups of this specific ilk, because there's so much stuff that is happening. And just for clarification, a school board is not supposed to make policy. It's supposed to implement policy from the superintendent's viewpoint and support students and support teachers. And the over-influence of a right-wing agenda and the brainwashing through Fox News, Newsmax, OAN, Trump, all these people, Ron DeSantis, is despicable. And it's a shame that this is what we're dealing with. I will defer on that one, Jordan. I'll have to get back to you on it. But with all of that being said, that's what I have for you tonight. Pay attention to whatever you can. You don't live in Central Bucks, you should still be looking at your school board races, because this is the 2020s battle that we're going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future. These are the battlegrounds that we're talking about. At the election in November, these right wingers had this sign saying that they hurt your kid, and it loops all the way back to the Kanye and the anti-Semitism. They controlled your kids. They masked them. They hurt your children, and they did all this stuff, and it's about blah blah blah. And like, there is that hint of anti-Semitism baked into these folks. Like, I have been around these people. I have engaged with these people at the polls, and I have seen their social media, because that is a key. That's what I will leave you with tonight. Moving forward, and again, this is maybe a different perspective on platforming and whatnot, but moving forward, if there's a platform that has these folks on it, like your school board members or right-wingers, or like someone like my good old buddy, my good old pal, Andy Meehan, who's a right-wing lunatic, follow them. See what they're talking about. Digest it, understand it. Obviously, I'm not asking you to agree with it, because, come on. But that is how we know what's going on. That is how we can understand, push back, preemptively fight against the rhetoric and the nonsense. Find those people. There's a reason why, if you look at my Twitter, I follow Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin. It's not because I particularly think that they're that bright. You have to know it's the art of war. You have to know your enemy. And, maybe every so often you can find something that there's common ground on and push together. I mean, it's very few and far between at this point. But, someday we might be able to get to a point where we can just discuss something that is like supporting railroad workers to have sick leave, because that's apparently controversial nowadays. But all that being pushed aside for right now, get ready. Take the holidays for what they are right now. Enjoy it if you can, because the fight is already on for these local elections. If you live in Pennsylvania, the elections are already heating up. So just be ready for that. And if you can spare the time, volunteer. Volunteer just in your community. Make the connections. Build the working class movement that we need to really build class solidarity across racial lines, across religious lines, across gender, across, we have so much, our interests actually do boil down to being very similar. So connecting with people in the community and developing those relationships is where we will build something bigger. So with that, that is all I have for you tonight. Thank you guys for watching. If you are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button down below. Hit the thumbs up button to help us grow the show in the algorithm for YouTube. While you're down there, you can leave a comment if you're watching afterwards. That would be awesome. You can follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Greater Society Media. And you can follow me on Twitter for right now at Con O'Hanlon. And then you can go on over to the Discord server, which is linked down below. And you can join us in discussions post-show and see whenever we're going live. And you can throw your ideas out. You can make suggestions for the show, etc. And connect with other folks that care about progressive policies. You can support the show on patreon.com/Greater Society Media for as little as $5 a month. And you can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you can find podcasts. But yeah, if you're here on YouTube, I definitely need you to hit that subscribe button so we can get to 100 subscribers, which we're getting closer. So keep your eyes out on weekly uploads for clips as well, because watching those would be great. Until next time, stay safe. Peace.